Wow, what a great game. It looked amazing, it was so much mystery, and that's not even all of it. Hey guys, Fishboy here, and have you ever said something that hasn't aged well? Because what I said definitely hasn't. And I'm not usually one to just jump onto a trend or an opinion that is popular, but yes. Today I'm going to be talking about something that I know a lot of people have already said, but I just wanted to let my thoughts out on it because yes, I think Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach was disappointing. So it's been a little over a year now since Security Breach has launched, and I think at this point I have officially made up my mind on what I think of the game in general. Now, before we begin, and I just talk badly about the game and just declare it as trash like a lot of other people do, I actually do want to take a few moments to talk about something else because I think once you dislike something, a lot of people tend to just ignore the good parts, and I'm a big boy, so I always believe in giving credit where credit is due. So I want to start off with what the game started off on first. I must say that I love these beautiful animated cutscenes. When I first saw the short glimpses of these in the last trailer that we got for Security Breach, it was definitely one of those things that made my jaw drop a little bit. I mean, look at that lighting. All four of the Glamrock animatronics look absolutely stunning in these, and they kind of give you short glimpses of their personalities, and of course it's also joined by a very cute and exciting track, and just the level of quality with the animation and transitions just really gets you excited to play the game. And I just completely adore how into it they all look, and of course I think the animatronics in Security Breach are really great and funny characters. They all have really stylish 80s design themes, and they're all just really nice to look at, especially Freddy in my opinion. I mean, we all know that others like to look at other things, but Glamrock Freddy just has such a clean, nice looking, but still detailed design, and I just love the color scheme of him too. I think his bright and shiny orange color also really helps him kind of stand out from the other animatronics, and of course Freddy really stands out from the others because obviously he's not trying to kill you and he's helping you throughout the whole game. But I still really love all four of the Glamrocks, from Monty's hilariously memey sunglasses and also his aggressive but kinda ignorant personality.
You can hide, but you can't hide!
To Roxy's very interesting hair and also very narcissistic and insecure behavior.
You're the best. You will find him first.
They're all really nice looking and personality-filled characters. Except for Chica, because she's always looking for pizza, but it's still hilarious and I love her, but traditionally Chica has always been my favorite character, so, you know. And don't even get me started on Sun. My god, I love this character. He's very unique looking, and just from meeting him within a few seconds, you just know that he's completely insane.
We can finger paint, tell stories, drink fizzy fast until our heads explode, and then stay up all night!
I must say, Kellen Goff did an incredible job voice acting this guy. I mean, it is perfect. And of course, the opposite of Sun is Moon, and I'm just gonna say right off the bat that the daycare section was easily the scariest part in the whole game, I think. It's super dark, you're looking for generators in this pretty complicated play structure, and just hearing Moon crawling after you so quickly with his red glowing eyes, it's definitely one of those moments in a game that makes you tense up and wish you could move a lot faster. Another pretty basic thing that I absolutely love about Security Breach is the environment. And yeah, it's got some areas which are kinda awkward and probably could have been much better, but I think this game has some absolutely beautiful areas, such as the thick swamp-like Monty Golf, the breathtakingly large and colorful Fazcade with DJ Music Man, and probably my favorite area in the whole game, which is also incredibly underused, the East Arcade. I mean, this area is just so nice to look at. There's so much detail, the arcade cabinets, the lights that kind of look like the puppet's arms, and just how dark it is and how isolated you feel inside this long and bendy arcade, along with the music and sounds of the pinball machines. It's just super immersive and a lot of fun to explore. Another area that I think looks super awesome is the main lobby. It's a very inviting and simple area, but it just looks really nice, and I must say, I think Steel Studios actually nailed the whole gift shop kind of vibe with Glamrock gifts. It's got these really nice animated screens with the glam rock animatronics on them. There's nice big glass walls. There's gorgeous lights, and the jazzy reverb music is just the cherry on top. It's just absolutely beautiful, honestly. Although one thing that I will say about the main lobby is that I kind of like the older, darker kind of color scheme that it had in the first trailer that we ever saw of the game. I just think it looks a bit better, but hey, that's just me. It's still easily one of my favorite areas in the game, but in general, there are just so many areas in Security Breach that are just super pretty, and I just really enjoy the fancy kind of neon light look. Another thing that ties into the characters, of course, is the voice actors. So again, I just want to say that Kellen Goff, this man's vocal range is kinda unreal. I mean, it didn't take me long at all to recognize that he voiced Sun, because, you know, I can kind of hear Funtime Freddy in there a bit, and Kellen has voiced things for FNAF several times before, so I really wasn't surprised to hear him in Security Breach. But then I found out that apparently he also voices Glamrock Freddy and Moon. Somehow. I mean, when I first heard that he also voiced Freddy, I almost didn't really believe it, but there it is. And like I said, I was just truly surprised to hear how well he can voice multiple, completely different characters. And the same thing goes for Marta Svevtik. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, I probably am. But anyway, because she voiced a variety of characters like Roxy, Vanny, and even Gregory. That was another thing that really surprised and impressed me, but really I think all the voice actors did an amazing job. Cameron Miller, Michelle Amos, Heather Masters, Andy Field, all of them. Very solid work as always, like we've seen in the past. Another high point for me was definitely the DJ Music Man boss segment. It should be no surprise that this part of the game is on here, because I think for everyone, this segment of the game really stood out from anything else we've ever seen in FNAF before. It's quite stressful, but it's not so stressful to the point where it's just not fun to play like a lot of games end up being. But this part of the game was really awesome. Like I said before, you're in this massive, colorful arcade with all these tubes of different sizes, some of them even big enough for the DJ to crawl into. It's really an awesome thing to watch, just seeing this huge animatronic crawling around on the walls. And of course, what to everyone was probably the coolest, most intense part of the game, the chase. There aren't many segments in games where you know pretty much what exactly is going to happen, and still you're excited by what you're seeing. Run! But this segment is definitely one of them. You've got a very, very long hallway to run down with a giant animatronic spider human chasing you down and throwing desks and arcade cabinets everywhere. And also just throughout the entire Music Man segment, the music is absolutely amazing. It's like epic, it's intense, and it's just the perfect kind of track for something like this. There are some things I definitely would have changed about this part of the game though, such as maybe Music Man being more of a threat throughout the entire segment rather than just the chase scene at the very end. I mean, this guy is too cool. He's too awesome to not see more from, but in the end, I think this was definitely a highlight from the game. One last thing that I want to talk about, which technically is an all Security Breach exclusive, is Princess Quest. I can't tell you enough how much I love the soundtrack for this minigame. And this might sound weird, but I'm not gonna lie, I find it quite relaxing, and I've actually listened to it while sleeping before, but at the same time, it sounds like a mysterious, long, exhausting, and dramatic journey, and really it is. It's pretty much confirmed at this point that Cassidy's soul is stuck in this game, and by playing all of the Princess Quest arcade games, you're in a way killing off Glitchtrap and freeing Vanessa from his control. And regardless, these are definitely the most content-filled and complex minigames in the whole series. They're long, not extremely hard, but they really hook you to keep playing them and find out what happens when you complete all of them. They've got references to FNAF VR, the Curse of Dreadbear DLC, and just some other odd little details, and they really remind me of the old school kind of FNAF vibe. They're just really well put together. Unfortunately, the game in general was not upon first release. Alright, let's get the obvious one out of the way. Now, I am in no way a game developer, and I have so much respect for people who do it, and I'm not going to talk about this for very long because, again, this is, of course, not intentional, and it has already been mostly fixed, so yes, the game is much better now after it's gotten its fair share of bug fix updates. And every complex game that has ever existed has been glitchier when it was freshly released, but it's still incredibly important to make sure that a game is the best it can be because that first impression is obviously what players are going to remember the most. But Security Breach, I mean, it just really seems like the development team didn't really playtest it much at all, because I mean, from what I've heard and experienced, this game was nearly unplayable at certain points when it was newly released. The most common bug that I personally experienced was just not being able to exit Freddy, but ever since the first huge update, I've never had that problem since. But seriously, I think the most common and irresponsible bug that was in the game was still getting killed by the blob after beating William Afton. More on that later.
Oh my god, guys, we did it! My voice is gone! My voice is gone! That wasn't supposed to happen, was it?
I mean, come on. Just imagine the frustration of that happening. Like, that is just so stupid. And I know that probably a big reason why this game was disappointing in general was because I'm sure the dev team had the pressure of finally getting this game out, which I'm sure is a big reason why it was so buggy. And a lot of things that we expected to come into play just simply didn't. A lot like our next subject. Okay, so this is another one of those things that a lot of people have said, but it's just so important and obvious. And that, of course, is the apparent main antagonist of the game, Vanny.
Gregory, your friends are worried about you. They're here with me. Please, come out. Gregory, I may have lost my temper earlier, but it was just a glitch. It won't happen again.
Gregory, we can get you out of here. You and me together. They won't stop hunting you. None of them will stop hunting you. We have to get you out by morning.
I just have one question to Steelwool Studios. Where the hell is this Vanny and Vanessa? This sounded like it would have been so awesome to have in the game. The alter ego of Vanessa that is Vanny coming in and out of control of Glitch Trap throughout the game. And yes, we did get that, but the way that it ended up being in the final version was just completely underwhelming and honestly quite forgettable. We only get unavoidably up close and personal with Vanny in a way where we actually have to avoid her just 2 times throughout the game. And even then, those 2 times that we have are just boring and they both end up lasting about 15 seconds at most. You just run away and then it's over. And the points where we do get that kind of alter ego dynamic, Vanessa is just emotionally cold and still really feels like more of an enemy than a caring security guard that genuinely wants to help Gregory get out of the Pizzaplex safely, like she appeared to be in the trailers. I mean, she even has her famous white woman jump scare. But in a way, Vanessa is clearly meant to be an ally, at least in some form. Just look at the Princess Quest 3-star ending that has Gregory, Glamrock Freddy's head, and Vanessa eating ice cream on a hill together. In Security Breach, it just kind of feels like she isn't even that important of a character, but she obviously is intended to be. But just in general, I think we didn't really get enough of the majority of the characters in Security Breach. Yeah, we got the boss battles of Chica, Roxy, and Monty, which were better than just running and hiding from them, which is the majority of the interactions in this game. And I actually enjoyed the good old classic FNAF formula part with checking the cameras and shutting the doors, but most of the boss battles still felt short and just kinda empty. I think the Chica one was actually a lot more complex and eventful than the other two. While it could just be boiled down to running and turning on generators, it at least kept my attention well with changing up the environment for every generator, and it led to finding a very lore-heavy and intriguing area of the game. All Monty did was say the same thing about 500,000 times.
Hey, little girl.
Honorable mention to the meme. Another thing that I really wish we got more of was the daycare. This area is just really fun and memorable, and we're not even able to go back inside after we do the generator segment. And yeah, I know that's because we've been banned from the daycare, and we always get a friendly reminder of that. I mean, I think it would have been great to have another segment where we have to sneak back inside for whatever reason, and Sun is trying to actively catch you and throw you out, and then he calls security or something like that. But it's just sadly locked off for the rest of the game. This just seems to be a trend in Security Breach. The most interesting and unique areas or characters are utilized the least. Like I was saying with the East Arcade earlier, and yeah, I would agree that milking things, of course, would make it get old and make it feel less significant, but I just think there are some things that could have just had slightly more screen time. Okay, so here's again where I want to say that I am in no way a game developer, but I just want to give my opinion on where I think a few of the segments in Security Breach went wrong. Starting with the very controversial Afton 2-star ending. Now, I myself have very mixed feelings when it comes to this part of the game, and for many reasons. But the main reason why I think it was definitely more of a miss than a hit was just simply the design of it. I think overall it just feels way too set up, and by that I mean the design of this area of the pizzeria just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And yes, I know that this is a FNAF game and most of the designs of the buildings aren't very accurate to real life, and that you have to sacrifice a little bit of realism in order to make interesting gameplay sometimes. But at least the offices in the first 3 games were directly and simply connected to the same floor of the building. But really, I mean, there's also 2 charging stations which barely come into play, with a 3rd one that Afton is inside for some reason. I mean, it's pretty clear that this guy hasn't been running on electricity for a long time now. But anyway, it just feels weird having buttons set up to spitting out flames for 3 different rooms, and there's also 3 other monitors across those rooms for Afton to use to possess Freddy. And yes, I'm fully aware that this location is the FNAF 6 location, and that place was intentionally constructed for everyone to burn, but it's not even designed the same as it is in FNAF 6. And as much as I liked Pizzeria Simulator, the office there just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense either, so I guess that's a small critique for that game too, but that's besides the point. The Afton boss fight area just feels way too artificial, and even then, just the way it plays out as a whole is just confusing and a bit boring at times. There's periods after you press the button on Afton where he literally just stands there for like a minute straight. Like, come on, at least have him trying to harm Gregory or something in some way during that downtime. And you might say, well, that's why Roxy, Chica, and Monty are there, but while that's true, they really only come into play like once during this segment. And when Roxy shows up, Freddy tells you to hide, but when I did that during my first playthrough, I got inside of Freddy and he instantly spit me back out. So I had to run back and forth from Roxy the entire time. Like really, the first several times that I played this ending, the blob never even showed up, and yeah, that's probably just because I never got Roxy to go away, but I played it again and I had enough time to use the Chica scream to make her go away, and she never came back, so it seems like that's what was intended, but you can't really blame me at the time for not thinking of doing that. Because like I said, Freddy instantly kicked me out, but I don't know, maybe that's just me. Now I do want to give a little bit more credit to this ending because, like I said, there were things that I actually liked about it. Things like the animation and sounds of Freddy getting possessed are just really creepy, and the whole "I am not me" narrative was really cool and intriguing. And honestly, I'm just gonna say, I'm a full believer that Glamrock Freddy is indeed possessed by Michael Afton. Just want to throw that out there. But anyway, I still really got a strong feeling of tragedy and trauma in regards to Freddy saying that his friends are here, probably referring to the blob, and also a feeling of peace and forgiveness from the short little hill scene of Freddy and Gregory. Just in general though, at this point I'm actually slightly on board with the opinion that the ending should have just never happened, but hey, I could very well change my mind if the Ruin DLC is really good, because it seems very, very likely that it is taking place after that ending. Now this part of the game that I'm going to talk about next is not very controversial, and I think is probably quite hated by the majority of people. And yeah, I definitely have some choice words for this part of the game, and that of course is Mazer Size. I'm just gonna say it. Mazer Size sucks. It is a horribly designed part of the game, and while I like the humorously ignorant concept of working off the calories while you eat pizza, nachos, fries, and cookies, and I also enjoy little puzzles because of course that adds even more mystery, but while Mazer Size wasn't out of the realm of possibility, of course, since it obviously has been solved, it's definitely one of those things that the very, very vast majority of players will just have to Google to get past, and also because most people aren't willing to sit there for hours and hours trying to figure out what the hell all this means. And you also have this screen which only seems to update from what you've moved if you leave the room. And the fact that you have to do this to get Monty's claws, which is required to even get the Afton ending, and even this hint like move dark green to the corner, you should be able to work it out from there. Like, thanks, that helps so much. Like, I'm sorry, but in my opinion, there's just nothing good about the design of the code in Mazer Size. At least make it solvable for the average player. Ironically, I think this is actually where I have the most complaints about Security Breach. I think that the little details in games can separate the good ones from the bad ones. And not to say that Security Breach doesn't have detail, because as we talked about before, the Pizzaplex as a whole has an incredible amount of detail. From being able to read the full menu at Salads and Sides to even having Freddy's face printed on the toilet paper. The environment in Security Breach definitely has a lot of neat little details. But why don't we just jump into what I'm talking about so that all of you watching this video can think that I am very picky, and the kind of things that I'm talking about are things like this. Yeah, I know that it's not particularly important at all, but I just love little details like that. It's unexpected, and it really does make you feel immersed. I just really wish we got more little realistic details like that throughout the game, and there were so many moments that I think could have been polished up much more. For instance, why does it still sound like I'm in a big, wide open area when Andy Field is talking to me about Sodaroni inside the elevator? There isn't even a little model of a speaker or anything. Another thing that actually was an added detail that I'm not a huge fan of was the Glamrock animatronics becoming dirty and cracked. And there may be some lore behind this design detail possibly, but regardless. Remember when I was talking about how pretty, smooth, and shiny the animatronics were? Well, here that all just goes away. They're replaced with looking dirty and even a little pixelated looking sometimes. And I guess it would kind of make sense for at least Freddy to have this detail during the Afton ending, because you are going underground to a destroyed and abandoned pizzeria. And Steel Wool likely just did this because the animatronics are walking around everywhere throughout the game, but I still think I and a lot of other people would have really preferred for them to keep their shiny, smooth looks until they all get decommissioned. But it's really a shame. After you escape the daycare, you see Freddy again, and oh my gosh, what happened to you? They're all just too pretty to have that taken away. Something else that just doesn't really make any sense to me is the collectible items that you can find in gift boxes throughout the Pizzaplex. Only a few of them have an actual in-game purpose, a few others have some lore in them, and the rest just do literally nothing. I feel like maybe Steel Wool could have at least made these have some sort of proper use, like possibly selling them at gift shops or something like that. Maybe just allow us to hold them and throw the items around just for the memes or something. On another topic of the little things, this is also a pretty common opinion about this game, and that is the jump scares or the mannerisms of the majority of the characters aren't really scary at all. And yes, I know I was saying how much I love the design of the characters, which is true, but that is one downside to them. They just aren't threatening, but there is one jump scare in particular that I think they nailed, and it includes someone that I already talked about, and that of course is Vanny. I think that the jump scare sound and the jump scare itself that we saw in the first trailer was infinitely better than the final one. Even though I have heard a few people say that the final one's playful style of movement did fit Vanny's character quite well, and I actually agree with that. I still think that the old one from the trailer was much better overall. I mean, it's got a very fast and spastic movement, and the sound is just way creepier. One way that I think the atmosphere could have been improved scary-wise, though, is to simply just make more areas much darker. And the thing is that it is already entirely possible within the game. I recently saw this video by someone by the name of Mr. Springs, and the video basically shows that if you set your graphic settings in just this certain way, it completely changes the atmosphere of the game, and it actually gives it a much spookier feeling, and it even makes more sense. I mean, why are all the lights on when the Pizzaplex is closed? The team would of course have to fix a few lighting issues, like the carpets just being super bright, but I honestly think that this looks great. And like I said, I think just by doing this, it makes the game at least a little bit scarier. Next, I want to talk about some of the once and still unused voice lines for the game. There were actually quite a bit of voice lines that were not first included into the game, but were later added with that major bug fix update that we got. But there are some great voice lines that were not used. Just have a listen to some of these alternate Chica voice lines that were never used.
You're safe with me. Stop only. No more games.
Now, I do already like Chica the way she is, and as I said earlier, she definitely has the least amount of personality out of the 4 Glamrock animatronics, because really all she does is talk about pizza and has a very fake-sounding customer service voice. But here she had a really funny and generic bratty teenager kind of voice, and honestly I think it's hilarious, and it really would have added something more to Chica. Another set of voice lines that I really think would have been great to have in the game were what appeared to be Freddy after being possessed by Afton.
Where are you going? Come back. I thought we were friends. Superstar.
God, why did they not include these? I mean, the way that Freddy says superstar was chilling. I think it's especially scary because we're so used to Freddy being on our side, but all of a sudden he's not. I mean, everyone was pretty shocked when we let Freddy run out of power while inside of his chest cavity, and he just kills you out of nowhere. There's also little voice lines like Roxy yelling at us to give her back her eyes, and I just really don't see a reason why they wouldn't use these. Speaking of cut content, there is just a criminally large amount of great little details and features that for whatever reason weren't put into the final game, such as the alien skin of the staff bots. I love the look of these bots. They're nice and clean looking, and I just think they're more fun and would have been a lot more memorable than just the normal staff bots with the little green helmets. There were also golf bots, which of course likely could be found in Monty Golf, and I think they're just nice looking. Another thing about the staff bots is that for some reason, they pretty much all move at a lower frame rate than anything else in the game. And maybe this was just an intentional design detail, but it just doesn't really make any sense. This is a very brief thing, but speaking of things that don't make any sense, we're gonna pick on Vanny again. She actually very often claims that she sees us, but she doesn't. The thing is too, is that I'm pretty sure none of the other animatronics do this until they, actually see you. So it's definitely not far-fetched by any means to have this fixed. And another thing about Vanny, but not just Vanny, is the comic book endings. And the reason that I bring up Vanny with these is because this specific ending is just really strange because there's a fully animated cutscene for the beginning of this ending, but the other two possible endings from this part of the game are in that comic book style. Like, you did the first part of this in 3D, like, why not the other two? To me, that just really seems like the definition of having to rush things, but just in general, it would have been a lot cooler and it would have felt more proper to have all the endings animated with 3D models. Speaking of animations, something that to me really just seems lazy is the little close-up animations of characters like Freddy and Vanessa. They're just in a pitch black void with a looping animation, and the motions of the characters don't even look like they're the ones who are talking. Just look at Vanessa, she kind of just looks around with a blank, thoughtless stare. And same thing with Freddy, except his looks even more like a Discord gif. One last thing, which again Steel Wool Studios was actually planning on doing in the first place, was having a bit of a different map layout. In the final version of the game, almost everything is separated by an elevator ride, which is okay, but I just think that what they were planning was much, much better. A lot of the places, like the main lobby, looked to be directly connected and open to the main atrium, and there were direct paths to places like Monty Golf, the Fazcade, and really all of the other minigames. And I just think it would have been a lot more immersive and realistic just having pathways to places. It kind of just feels more like a normal building that way. So, I know I just spent the last half an hour talking about things that I think were bad in Security Breach, but at the same time, I just want to say that I still really enjoyed Security Breach. Mainly because I still couldn't believe that we finally got a huge, completely free-roam FNAF game with voice acting, character motivation, lore, and very beautiful graphics. And it was especially crazy for me because this was pretty much the first FNAF game that I went almost completely blind into. And I had actually waited 4 whole months to finally get a good computer so that I could experience this game properly. That's how bad I wanted to experience this game. Because even if I don't absolutely love a game, at the end of the day, this series means so much to me. I practically grew up with it, and I really don't think that I could ever hate FNAF. And I'm so thankful to Scott Cawthon for making this amazing franchise, and Steel Wool Studios for making this game possible. And while it's far from a perfect game, I still don't think that it's horrible. But with that, I think that in the end, I would give Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach a 5 out of 10. And hey, there's still more to come from this title later on this year. So there you have it, everyone. Those are my thoughts on Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach.